Big up to the boys, Fox and Shane. Set your minds free, no locks and chains. Do what you love, roll the dice. 50-50, we cold as ice. One thing cold, but the penny turn red. Can't let that clear in my head, war gaming.
Thanks, Churchy. Hey guys, welcome to Hobby Homies. I'm Shane. This is Fox.
Hey, what's up?
Churchy's behind the computer doing everything he does best.
Everything he does best.
And we are your weekly tabletop podcast. I nearly did it again, dude.
Yeah, but you did.
We have 1 week off and my brain just reverts 3 years.
Yeah, isn't that funny? We do that with rules as well.
Yep.
Whenever we play a game, I feel like if we haven't played that game in a while, for some reason, it doesn't matter what we're playing, it's like we revert to 7th edition 40k. Doesn't matter if it's War Surge. Yeah. Actually, that's probably the best.
So what's your side armor? It's like we're playing Shatterpoint.
Yeah, we're playing a card game. Yeah. This is Everdell. What do you mean? What's your toughness? I need to consult the chart.
The chart.
Hey, what are we doing today?
Dude, I am doing sweet FA and you're doing all the work. We're talking about Skaven lore.
I am so excited.
So am I. I know nothing about Skaven except for what me and Church have played in Vermintide.
Oh, you guys might know more than me. So Skaven are my favorite faction from, I want to say, any universe.
Sure, it's a big call.
It's a big call, but I couldn't think of, I spent all week trying to think of if that's a bold claim, but I'm like, no, it's pretty on the par. Mm-hmm. Maybe like if they're 1A, then 1B is Kroot in 40k.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I could also have played Skaven in 40k,
you would?
Then Kroot wouldn't have even been on my radar.
I guess Kroot are quite Skaven-y.
Yeah, they're, humanoid, anthropomorphic. I mean, they're avian.
Mm.
And pigeons are avian. And pigeons are rats of the sky.
Winged rats.
And rats are my favorite. So, I love Skaven. Yeah. However, that actually made it really difficult to prepare. So this is a deep dive, by the way.
Yeah. Good old-fashioned deep dive.
Good old-fashioned deep dive into Skaven lore. And we're actually going to do this in 2 parts, which I'll talk about in a sec. But it was difficult to prepare because I love Skaven so much. And we've been playing this game we've been, in the tabletop wargaming scene for a decade. Mm. It made it very difficult to do this because so much of the information and lore and timelines and shit that I had in my head is out of order.
Sure.
And at odds with what Games Workshop is saying is canon and whatnot. So I had to forget everything and relearn. And so I went to the ancient libraries and the tomes and the ancient scrolls and looked over all the texts and now I bring to you...
You mean Wikipedia?
Now I bring to you what Wikipedia has told me. I should have included references. I would say my references for the following information are...
Google.
Everything I could have found.
Yep.
It's old codexes of what do you call them?
Battle tomes?
Of Skaven.
Is that what they call them?
A lot of it is from the Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game. Yeah. 2nd edition.
You were just saying
supplement.
About that. Yep. Called
Children of the Horned Rat.
Nice.
And other things. Yep. So let's get into it, but we're going to break it into 2 parts. I apologize for those who are watching on YouTube. You're going to see me staring at my tome, my iPad.
Your digital tome.
Of where I've taken all my notes. So we'll attack it in 2 parts. Part 1, we're going to build the foundations of your understanding of Skaven, because a lot of you have probably just jumped, like there's a new edition of Warhammer that dropped today.
Featuring Skaven.
Yeah, Skaven Tide.
Yes.
Is the box set, and they have a new, I guess a bit of a new take on their lore, which we'll get into in a few weeks when we hit part 2.
Sure.
But you might be sitting there hobbying, painting your Skaven.
Yep.
That you've got in Skaven Tide, and you want to know about Skaven lore, we're bringing it to you.
Hot and fresh.
Hot and fresh.
Lay it on, dude.
I don't know why that makes me so uncomfortable. All right, so...
Where are we starting in the universe?
Build the foundations. We're going to talk about what are the Skaven like.
Yep.
We're going to talk quite broadly.
Yeah, okay.
Why do they care about warpstone? Who is the Great Horned Rat? And the origins of the Skaven. Part 2, we're going to learn more about who the Skaven were in the old world, and then who they are now in the current day.
Because they are one of the few races that transferred over.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, they were introduced quite early on. 1986, they were introduced into Warhammer Fantasy Battles 2nd edition.
Yep.
And they've been around ever since.
Wow.
So what is that? 40 years of Skaven lore that we're going to try and condense down into 2 eps.
Good luck.
Thanks. So, what are the Skaven like?
I don't know. That's what I'm here for.
So, the Skaven are humanoid ratmen, characterized by their wiry, emaciated frames, sharp claws, and fur-covered bodies, typically modeled with dark browns, greys, and blacks, though albino Skaven, my favorite, often are more powerful and are of higher status. So I actually found this part of the lore super cool. So when I made my Spike Claws swarm, I made one of them an albino Skaven.
Oh, yeah, with red eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. So obviously they're very rat-like. They've got beady eyes that gleam with malicious intelligence.
Of course they do.
Prominent gnawing teeth. They exhibit hunched postures and rapid skittish movement, reflecting their nervous and paranoid behavior. Personality-wise, the Skaven are almost entirely self-serving. Their society and individual behaviors are driven by extreme self-interest and a survival of the fittest mentality. Every Skaven is primarily focused on its own gain and advancement, often at the expense of others. Kind of like me.
Kind of like society in general.
Yeah, I know. They're a brilliant reflection of society.
Yeah.
The self-serving nature manifests in constant treachery, betrayal, and infighting within their clans. Even the leaders and warlords are constantly looking over their shoulders, knowing that their underlings are plotting to overthrow them.
That's so funny because it's like that Underworld's warband. Is it Scritch's Spike Claws?
Swarm.
And like the 2 I see is like so-and-so the almost trusted.
Yeah.
That's like,
That's like the highest honor of a rat,
It's like,
is to be almost
trust you.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
I plan to kill you. This relentless pursuit of personal power and survival means the Skaven alliances are typically fragile and short-lived, held together only by mutual benefit or immediate necessity. They are quick to abandon or betray allies if it means saving their own skins to gain an advantage. Their obsession with warpstone further fuels this self-serving behavior, as they'll stop at nothing to acquire this precious resource, even if it means sacrificing their own kind. Not themselves, obviously.
Oh, no.
But their brothers around them.
Indeed.
So, a lot of when I go through this Skaven lore, I assume maybe you've loosely heard of Age of Sigmar, Warhammer. Maybe you've smacked a purchase on the old Skaven-Tide box.
Possibly. Or a split, perhaps.
Or a split. Or maybe you're just like, oh, I'm loosely familiar with Skaven, but don't really know. So I'm assuming you know very little.
You would assume correct about me.
And I was basically like, how do I write this episode for Shane?
Yeah, thank you.
So I mentioned warpstone there.
I've heard of warpstone.
Yes.
I've heard much about warpstone.
What would you say you know about warpstone?
It's a magic glowing rock.
Oh, well, okay. I wrote a lot, but
Thanks for watching.
That's basically it. We'll see you next week. So, understanding Skaven requires understanding warpstone and their insatiable desire for it, because they have a thirst that cannot be quenched.
Oh, so it's crack.
I'm not going to say it's crack.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that Skaven's desire for warpstone is a representation of our desire for plastic
Crack.
models.
Oh, okay.
Crack.
Yeah.
But it's not far off. So warpstone is a substance that is often considered to be pure.
Pure?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pure
You're all
magic.
right. Yep.
Solidified. It appears as a dark crystalline substance that can glow with an eerie, sickly green light. Its appearance is often described as unsettling and malevolent, reflecting its danger and corruptive nature.
Yeah, right.
Kind of like our backlog
Yep.
of plastic crack.
Yep.
So why do they desire warpstone so deeply, Shane?
I'm
glad you asked. Shut up. We're on a timeline.
I'm here to learn.
It's a power source. So warpstone is an incredibly potent and versatile source of magical energy. The Skaven use it to fuel their dark sorceries, power their twisted technologies, and enhance their physical and magical abilities.
Yep.
It is the cornerstone of their scientific
That's
and
a word.
magical, I made it up, advancements, enabling them to create devastating weapons and terrifying creatures. B, Dos. It has religious significance. Warpstone is seen as a holy substance blessed by their deity, the Great Horned Rat, which I'll explain about later.
Sure.
Its acquisition and use are intertwined with their religious practices and beliefs. Consuming or utilizing warpstone is often seen as a way to gain favor with the Great Horned Rat, which is a powerful motivator for the Skaven. It also has mutagenic properties.
Yes.
So warpstone can cause rapid and often beneficial mutations.
Are there any unbeneficial mutations?
I'm glad you asked. Skaven are always seeking to enhance their strength and abilities, and these mutations can be seen as gifts that make them more powerful or resilient.
Of course.
However, these mutations are unpredictable and can also lead to horrific deformities, adding to the inherent chaos of Skaven society. I don't know. I feel like every abhorrent deformity is just a blessing.
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
that's right.
Like if you're a rat,
Yeah.
what's down from there?
There's not much.
Yeah.
Like maybe a cockroach.
Imagine you become a cockroach.
I reckon it'd be fun for a little while.
Yeah.
Until like you found until a bird found you.
Yeah, facts.
Or a cat or something.
Do you remember Animorphs?
How could I ever forget animals?
Do you actually remember Animorphs?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the pinnacle of 90s TV.
Yeah.
Or was it even might have even started like earlier, right? Like maybe like late 80s?
It was probably 90s.
It's probably early 90s maybe, yeah. But yes, I remember.
So
I
good.
remember.
Imagine like they always animorphed into like cool stuff.
Oh yeah, like a lion or something.
Or an eagle. I think one of them was trapped as a hawk or something. Tobias. That was his name. Yeah. Fun fact. Anyway, I remember that. That's not a deep dive into Animorphs. That's in 6 weeks.
If you got trapped as an eagle, I'd put you in a cage.
I would welcome the cage.
Wouldn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm in a cage already, so might as well have wings. It has economic and social status.
Sure.
Possession of warpstone is a significant status symbol within Skaven society. Those who control large quantities of warpstone hold immense power and influence, allowing them to rise in the hierarchy.
Right, so like...
Which is the goal of all Skaven.
So warpstone is like money and power combined.
Yeah, it's like that episode of The Simpsons where it's like, first you get the honey. Is it? First you get the bees, then you get the honey, then you get the women.
Yeah.
It's like that, but with warpstone.
Sure.
And no bees.
And just women rats.
It's also, fun fact, as I was diving into the tomes, I was like, that there is a breakdown of their breeding.
That's
in intricate detail. I was deep in the tomes. Of course there is. I was deep in the tomes.
Yeah. There's crude breeding, for goodness sake.
They give them a back rub. So, because you asked, the women are rare. And so there's probably about one woman in every 10 rats. And they don't...
That poor lady.
Oh, yeah. And they don't ever have to like go above ground.
Sure.
They're protected, they're worshipped, they're appreciated, like women today, am I right?
Jesus.
And so they breed, they nurse, they bring forth the future generations. They're almost demigods below ground, which is cool. Anyway, addictive nature. Warpstone is highly addictive, both physically and psychologically. Skaven, it's like crack. Skaven who are exposed to or consume warpstone often develop an insatiable craving for it. This addiction drives them to create.
So they just eat it? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but...
if they want to gain some of the mutagenic properties of it, they may consume it.
Cool.
This addiction drives them to extreme lengths to acquire more, perpetuating?
That's a word.
That's a Shane word.
Yeah, it is.
You're welcome. I'm representing
This is why I don't do deep dives anymore.
Perpetuating? Yeah, perpetuating a cycle of dependence and obsession.
Intertwined.
Yeah, there's a lot of info. I gotta read quick and I'm dumb. So
I used to feel.
that's a cocktail.
And when I did it, we didn't have a camera on us.
Yeah, true. True, you're lucky.
I could literally sit there with it in my face and read it.
Yeah, but I mean, you're also blind. So
yeah, it's true.
That's not your fault. All right, so I've talked a little bit about. All right, so now you understand Skaven, kind of what they are, warpstone, why they desire it. Let's talk about the
purposes
Great
of
Horned Rat.
Demigods.
Exactly. So in Warhammer, there have always been 4 main chaos gods that represent different aspects of chaos and corruption.
Sure.
We got corn. What's corn, Shane?
Cereal.
Yeah, correct. That's corn flakes. So that's close enough.
Yeah.
Saint, no. Corn is the blood god.
Is the-
God of war, violence, and bloodshed.
Skulls for the skull throne.
That's right. Sinch,
The god of change.
hell yeah, brother. Preach it.
Yeah.
Nurgle,
The god of pestilence and disease.
Slanesh. No, that's good.
The god of lust and abundance.
Yeah, the god of excess, pleasure, and hedonism.
Sure.
And all of these gods are sort of a reflection of different parts of, I wouldn't say human society, because obviously in the, I was going to say mortal realms, there's no mortal realms. The old world, there are many different races. But yeah, so there's the 4 main chaos gods
Sure.
that we just mentioned. And although not traditionally one of the original 4 chaos gods, the great horned rat is the deity of the Skaven and has ascended to the status of a chaos god.
Wow.
He represents deceit, cunning, and the insatiable hunger for power. His followers, the Skaven, worship him as their supreme god, believing that he grants them strength and success in exchange for their loyalty and constant scheming.
Do you feel like the Great Horned Rat tries to hang out with the other Chaos Gods and they're just like, oh, we got to change our hangout night because he knows where we meet and when we meet?
It's a fun fact, yes. So the Chaos Gods have a Discord server, and one of them accidentally gave it to the Horned Rat.
Yep.
And so
Of course.
the Horned Rat sneaks in there sometimes. But
Jumps in their voice chat.
what I love about the Great Horned Rat is that he doesn't like aspire to be one of the Chaos Gods.
Okay.
He considers himself to be the only Chaos God,
Oh, wow.
and that there should be subordinates to him.
So he's just going in there just swinging it around.
He's bro. If someone's swinging it around, it's the Great Horny Rat. I mean, sorry, Horned Rat. I read that wrong. My bad.
Right.
Yeah, he's swinging it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because he sees himself as like he's the Great Horned Rat who created a race
Sure.
and created his followers, where he
Yeah.
sees the other deities as things that were created by the followers.
Okay. Yes.
He thinks they're headcanon for people,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
he thinks he exists.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, he probably knows that he exists, I would assume. So, anyway, what's cool about the Great Horned Rat is, as you'll see soon, he ascended to the status of God through his scheming and cunning. Unlike the other gods, he created his own race of followers, which I just touched on.
Yeah.
So, that kind of lays the foundations of the 3 main things you need to understand about the Skaven.
Yep.
Now we're going to talk about the story of the Skaven origin.
Sure.
This is the most iconic story that there is for the origin of Skaven, and it's called the Doom of Kavsar.
Okay.
Sometimes referenced as the first written encounter of the Skaven. It's a Tillian poem with 13 stanzas that goes as follows. Before I read that, the number 13 is the number of the Great Horned Rat, which you will see repeated throughout part 1 and part 2.
Sure.
Many times over. Probably 13 times if you're keeping tabs at home.
If you're playing along at home, count.
So, before I dive in to what is the rest of the episode and a long encounter, what are your thoughts so far as I pour myself another brewski?
My thoughts so far.
Have you learned anything?
I learned several things.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Sweet. No, that's good. That's the aim.
I think you're doing a good job, dude.
Thanks, man.
It's all right. Anytime. I'm actually excited to hear more about the this tale.
This tale is, it was one of the most exciting things I read as a youth, because this tale is as old as Warhammer, as old as Skaven.
Sure.
It was published in the very first, what do you call it? The Warhammer 2nd edition, not the rule book, but the very first like Skaven supplement.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so the Doom of Kavsar has 13 stanzas, which means 13 sections. And I'm just going to read through them in succession, maybe skip over useless bits for time's sake. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Once there was a great city, a city where man and dwarf lived in harmony. In keeping with the natures of its people, the city was built both above and below the earth, with
course.
man ruling those places above and dwarves ruling those places below. It was a time of plenty and all were content. What a great start.
Oh, it sounds like heaven.
Then one day, it was decided amongst the men of the city that they must give praise to their gods for all their good fortune. Accordingly, they made plans to build a great temple, a temple greater than the world had ever seen, topped by a single tower as tall as the sky. And so, having sought the advice and counsel of the dwarves in their halls below, the men of the city set about their work, knowing that when the temple was complete, the gods would send them even greater fortune as a reward for their endeavors.
Of course.
That's just how math works.
That's right.
I give you A,
Yeah.
you give me B.
Yeah.
And eventually, someone gets a D. Weeks became months, months became years, and still the men of the city built. Growing old and grey, so long had their labours lasted that they passed their task in time to their sons. Mm-hmm. And their sons grew old and passed their work to their sons, who likewise grew old and passed to theirs, until at last, after many generations of ceaseless labour, the foundations and first structures of the temple lay complete.
Sounds like our roadworks. Am I right?
And yeah, big time. And they could begin the tower.
Wow, they haven't even started the tower yet?
Yeah, so imagine there's a temple. I imagine it's 20 stories high.
Okay.
And on top of that, they need to build a tower that reaches the heavens. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So further years passed as generation after generation of men lived and worked and died to raise the tower. And with each generation, the work grew harder. For as the tower grew, so it became more and more difficult to bring the stone to the top. Mm-hmm. And finding their progress becoming even slower and their work still incomplete, the people of the city began to despair. Imagine it's been hundreds of years and you're like, you know what? It's getting really tough.
Bro, I just like call it like halfway to the heavens. Be like, this is a base camp.
Yeah.
Let's be happy with this, and then we'll go for the summit tomorrow.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
It was then a stranger came among them.
Oh, okay.
A hooded man in a cloak of grey, a man who claimed great power and told them he would finish their tower in a single night, of which they've toiled hundreds of years, a single night, if they would grant him but a single boon. When asked what the boon was, he told them he wished simply to add his own dedication to the gods to the structure of the tower.
Sure.
And thinking this was a small price, the people of the city made bargain with the stranger.
Okay. Said you're on.
Said, all right, man, one night?
Yeah.
I mean, shit.
Yeah.
What do we got to lose?
We've had some contractors, and you're so far looking like the best one.
Yeah, and that's pretty cheap.
Yep.
They charge us 40 mil. Yeah. You want to put a token up there?
Chisel something into one brick.
Say, Greg dude was here?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Dusk came, and as the last redness of the descended sun faded from the sky, the stranger entered the unfinished temple. Pause. I want to mention I didn't write this.
No, we know.
This isn't fanfic. This is an actual piece of Warhammer lore. I'm reading the exact words.
Verbatim.
Mm-hmm. Darkness fell, the clouds covered the moons, while the homes of the people of the city waited to see if the stranger could complete this task.
Like, surely you'd hear him.
Ping, ping. Until with midnight approaching, they went once more to the temple square, went and saw a great wonder. For up above them, the tower of the temple now stood complete.
Wow, you did it in half a night.
I know, bro. That's some, I mean, you pay for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Rising like a great lance, stabbing towards the heavens, pure and white. And at the tower's very peak, a great rune-inscribed bell hung gleaming in the moonlight. Rejoicing the work of so many generations of their fathers was done, the people of the city turned in search of the stranger, seeking to praise him. But of the stranger, there was no sign.
Oh.
Then, with the coming of midnight, the bell struck unbidden. Once, twice, thrice, the great bell tolled.
Oh.
Its heavy and doom-laden tones carrying across the city. 4, 5, 6 times, it beat slow, and even like the pulse of a bronze giant.
Oh, wow.
7, 8, 9, and with each ring, the bell grew even louder, sending the people of the city staggering back from the temple,
Too loud,
clutching their ears.
Turn it down.
Turn it down.
Yep.
10, 11, 12 above in the sky. The sky seemed to grow dimmer while the glow of Morris Leb, I don't actually know what that is. I had to Google it, and I still don't really understand. Grew even more bright. It might be their name for their moon.
Sure.
Because they couldn't call it moon. Can't copyright that. 13. And at the 13th stroke of the infernal bell, lightning split the skies and thunder answered it. Then all grew dark and silent.
It's broken.
Imagine that. Imagine I'm not going to pay him because that bell is broken.
Yeah.
The tower's complete. It pierces the sky.
Yeah.
But the bell, too loud.
Too loud.
Hurting my
and
eerie.
One extra toll.
Also, like, yeah, that's 12 hours in a day. Why toll 13 times?
Yeah.
Frightened by the rings they had seen, but believed the bell had at last stopped ringing, the people of the city retreated to their beds, thinking that come the dawn, they would try to enter the temple once more. But dawn never came. Next morning, they arose to find the sky, shrouded in brooding storm, clouds that blotted out the sun, and with these clouds came rain. The rain was black like ash and fell in heavy downpours, puddling the streets with darky iridescent colours. I imagine oil.
Sounds like oil.
Everything that it just, it's sticky. People are slipping over it. And it's oil.
It sounds awful.
It sounds horrible. Day after day, the rain still continued, and each night the entrances of the temples below it sealed shut against the best efforts of man. The bell tolled 13 times at midnight, and so as days became weeks and weeks became months, and still the rains were unceasing.
You miss it every time.
It's growing more aggressive. It's a moth. Oh, it's a moth.
Mosquito, isn't it?
Ugh, it's massive. Look at that.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's massive. That's a warpstone fueled mosquito if I've ever seen one. Their crops long ago failed, and the people of the city huddled, dwelling with fear gnawing in their hearts. Messengers were sent to faraway places in search of aids, but as you can expect, never came back. Right, the aids. I mean,
Wouldn't it be in search of aid?
I mean, I copy pasted this and it says AIDS, dude. Oh no, you're right. I read it wrong.
Yeah.
In search of aid. It's like, how is that an upgrade? You've already got plague. Why do many aid when few do the trick? The elders of the city went to see the dwarves once more. Their time to demand their aid. They told the dwarves, just one D, no S.
Thank goodness.
They told the dwarves that they must share their food and allow the people of the city to come and live underground. But the dwarves met these demands with angers, telling them that their tunnels were flooded and their food stock had been devoured by rats.
Oh, it's begun.
In the ruins of the city above, each day became worse, and driven to despair, the people began to rail against the gods that they had once cherished, saying that they had forsaken them. Some turned to worship dark powers, calling on all the princes of evil to aid them in their time of need, but no answer came. Instead, the rats grew bolder. Worse, they had now grown both in size and number. Lords now of the broken city, they roamed at will, feeding on the dead and dragging those too weak to fight them. Men lived as hunted creatures in their own city, and with every midnight the great bell atop the tower struck 13, the sound seemingly ever more brazen and triumphant. We're almost at the end. This is where it takes a incredible turn. At last, in desperation, the remaining people of the city took what weapons they had and began to pound upon the door that led to the dwarves' halls beneath them, demanding entrance. Hearing no answer, they took up fallen beams and battered their way within, to find the tunnels below were dark and empty. Descending, they found the dwarves' ancient halls of kinship deserted, but with a few piles of gnawed bones and scraps of torn cloth to give testament to the fates of those who had once lived there.
Wow.
And then, glittering in the darkness of the dying light by their torches, the people of the city saw they were surrounded by 1,000 times 1,000 pairs of red, malevolent eyes. Like a vast swarm shaped of liquid midnight, the rats attacked. And standing back to back, outnumbered in the darkness, the shattered remnants of the once proud people of the city fought for their lives, but to no avail. Their hour was past. And so it was, screaming and shrieking for mercy, that the people of the city finally passed from this world, whilst above them, as though in mocking answer to their scream, the great bell struck 13 once more. And that's it.
That's cool, man.
And that's the origin of the Skaven. So there's a different, possibly more reliable version of these events written by the dwarves that was later found.
Oh, yeah.
That account goes into detail about the events after the bell chimed 13 times. It says a lot of the same stuff. The rain fell, and with it, pestilence and a rat came, sneaking into storehouses and food supplies. The local populace became mutated variants of their former selves due to the plague. Fur tufts and elongated features with vicious and hungry nature. Both above and below ground, the city was eating itself alive.
Yeah.
And so in the original story where the dwarves denied people entrance,
Yep.
the dwarves say that was because they thought they were battling against the Skaven.
Like they thought they had it worse.
They thought they had it worse and they were trying to keep the Skaven from getting to the top world.
Yeah.
And then eventually they opened their doors out of necessity only to find that the humans were fighting the same thing.
Yeah.
And then they finally fought back to back against their threats and the same demise
Yeah.
for both of them, which I think is a cooler account and kind of probably more realistic for the Skaven,
Yeah.
slowly turning people against each other. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was cool. There are some really old, like interesting stories from like that old tome that I found.
Yeah.
A couple of them I'll highlight because they almost act as like preludes to the doom of Kavsar. So there's a story about a city overrun by giant rats, and they're like start as rats. They get bigger, slowly overrun the city, and then that city. This is from like they say year 4, so like the dawn of man almost.
Yeah.
The dawn of being able to account for years.
Yeah.
And so
So one guy's like, we should start writing this shit down.
yeah,
Yeah.
I figured out how to write.
Yep.
Let's write about the giant rats. And so, you know, it was like they were on the brink of destruction at that city, and
Yeah.
they figured out how to. They're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. Everyone off the streets at like midnight,
Yep.
and what we'll do is we'll boil up a bunch of cheese,
Oh yeah.
have it melt, and
Like a fondue.
and then fondue, make
Yep.
a big old fondue,
Nice.
and have the rats pour into the city, and then we'll flood the city.
Wouldn't they be like that?
What's that?
Wouldn't the rats like that?
Well, apparently they flooded the city and they killed all the rats. And so they then, for like generations, had a festival on that day where they would make big old cheese things and celebrate the killing of all those rats.
Oh, cool.
And that felt like a bit of a prelude. Remember that, store that in your brain for when in a couple of weeks we talk about part 2.
Yep.
Because I feel like that has a really cool analogy with some stuff that happens later. There's also another story that happened before this, where it talks about, they call it, it's the story of Rat Boy. So basically a kid was born with 6 toes. His father tried to lop it off.
Yeah,
His
as
mum-
any sane father would.
Yeah, it's like, what, you got 6 toes? Boom.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be a weirdo in
Yeah,
society.
You get picked on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but the mother was like, oh, no, don't do it. And so he did. He got picked on for years. He was sort of an outcast. His family loved him.
Rat boy.
Rat Boy.
Yeah.
And finally, a wizard kind of like took him in and was like, oh, I think you're special. And he was like, oh, cool, I'm special. And groomed him, basically. And tied like a stone to his foot.
Yep.
And got him to do chores, which was like put rats in all the storehouses and stuff.
Okay.
And he kind of was like, became scared of the wizard and didn't want to like not do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And eventually that leg became like a rat leg.
Sure.
And he became more rat-like. But when he saw his rat leg, he was like kind of overcome with madness and adored his leg and became Rat Boy.
Okay. So you leaned into it.
He leaned into it.
Yeah.
He found his niche and he just leaned into it, kind of like us.
Cool.
So there's also, I think the most interesting story is a story of a character called Skaven, who was one of the younger dwarf ancestor gods. And he showed no aptitude for like working stone or shaping metal.
Okay.
So he was outcast from the dwarven society
Yep.
and exiled. And then he went away into the deep earth and learned how to shape his flesh instead of metal, turning himself into a hideous rat beast and swearing revenge on his bloodkin. So Skaven has been called a cloaked wizard, which is interesting because it's like, and this is alluded to but never confirmed, but
Yep.
it's like, is Skaven, who swore revenge on the dwarves,
The one that built the tower.
the one that built the tower and thus eventually the one that ascended to being the great horned rat?
Can't be.
Oh, okay.
He didn't like working with stone.
So maybe he made millions of rats build it.
In half a night,
Christ.
it could be done.
Yeah, with rats.
Yeah.
Anything is possible. And so that is the origin of the Skaven.
Wow.
They were born out of that the doom of Kavsar, which
Yep.
eventually became the main home of the Skaven,
Yep.
which we'll talk about next in part 2.
I'm actually really excited to hear about that and hear how it how it sort of comes to with the mortal realms and all that. But wow, that's so awesome. I had no idea that it came down to something like that, where just a wizard rocked up and it's like, yeah, I'll build your tower for you on one condition.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, whatever it is, you can have it.
Yep. And it's very cool to see, like, you know, and again, we'll talk more about it, but you flash forward to where Skaven are now, and you kind of just like work back through the threads, and you're like, did this all come out of an old dwarven exiled demigod? Or Rat Boy.
My money's on Rat Boy.
My money's on Rat Boy, you know? Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Very cool.
Nice, dude.
But
Well
we'll
done.
delve into it more. This is just the foundations. Now you understand how Skaven came to be.
Yep.
It was supposedly a primordial version of the Great Horned Rat who built the tower and henceforth turned that town into the home of the Skaven.
Yep.
And hopefully that's beneficial to you as you paint and build your new Skaven-tide models.
Yeah.
But if not, maybe this is just a cool... Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's right, Matt.
Yeah. Wow. You're going to enjoy it.
No, that was awesome, dude. That was so good. Well done on putting that together.
Thanks. There's more. There's so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. I could imagine it's so hard to boil it all down into 30 minutes, you know?
Yeah. And even going into a few weeks when we do part 2,
Yep.
there's so much I had to leave out.
Yeah.
I basically had to leave out every like notable event.
Yep.
You know, like every battle and every minutia.
Yeah.
Even though all of them were important to shaping Skaven, there was just like, there's sort of like an overarching thing you need to know that's more important than those things. So
Yeah.
I encourage you to go suss out. I think the best one was there's a section in that Children of the Great Horned Rat.
Yep. Is that supplement
The
of
supplement that I
the
referenced?
second edition, was it?
Second edition of the Warhammer fantasy role-playing game.
Yep.
And that has 80 pages, and it's just on Skaven.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's on their diet. It's on their behavior. They did dissections.
I imagine they eat literally everything,
Yeah, absolutely everything.
including garbage.
Oh, so much garbage. So much garbage. But it has actually a breakdown, like, over 4,000 years, there's some breakdowns that it was like, this year happened, and then 5 years later, this year happened. It's a complete timeline. I was like, any one of these things could be an episode.
Yep.
And there's 40 of them.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll leave all those out and just hit the main things. So, yeah, anyways, it was great fun.
Nice.
So hopefully you found some benefits in listening to us talk about Skaven for 40 minutes.
I'm sure that they have.
Good.
I enjoyed listening to you talk about Skaven for 40 minutes.
Wow, and that's a hard sell because Shane hates listening.
It's the worst.
It's the worst.
You know what's worse than listening? Reading.
Oh, facts.
Overrated.
Yeah, well, I had to do that. So.
Just listen.
Just listen. It's an audiobook for you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fox, for doing that.
No worries. Thank you to our patrons
Patronies.
who keep us alive. You are our warpstone, and we are but mere Skaven.
We will consume you one day. Hey, we got some new patrons.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Can we consume them too?
Absolutely. Big shout out to Chuck, Dwayne, and Analog Line.
Those are 3 different people.
Yes,
Chuck Wayne is not one person. It's Chuck and Wayne.
Chuck and Dwayne.
Chuck and Dwayne.
Chuck and Dwayne.
Yep. Amazing. Thank you all so much. That's crazy. 3 new patrons.
Yep.
You enlighten us with your presence.
If you want to join our Patreon, you can do so with a link in the description. We have a free membership as well that you can join and have a bit of a sticky beak, poke around there. And then if you wish to give us a little bit of your hard-earned cash, it goes to upgrading the studio and doing what we can do to bring you better and more content.
Yeah, for the people that want to sign up for free, we've been trying to post questions and get to know our community, and all of that stuff is free. If you want early access to videos and whatnot and all the other bonuses, that's all paid for stuff.
Yeah.
Hidden behind our conniving, dollary-do demanding roles as podcast hosts.
Yep.
And you can suss all that out on the Patreon.
Yeah.
Thanks to ozwargaming.com.au for giving us some dope terrain that we've yet to film a video on.
Yes.
We got a big box of it,
Huge.
and I don't know what's in there.
I know. I looked.
Yeah, you looked. Shane looked. He had a snicky beak.
Hey, I couldn't not do
sticky beak.
sitting there on the shelf. I'm like,
His
I can't
beak
not.
is as sticky as they come.
They call me old Sticky Beak Johnson.
Yeah, they do. I hate it. So yeah, thank you, Oswald Gaming. If you want us, if you need 3D printed terrain, miniatures, anything of the sorts, go check out oswaldgaming.com.au.
Yep, 10% off too if you use the link in the description.
Yeah, we got a bunch of affiliate links down there. Suss that out. Helps the show. It helps us.
It does. Yeah.
And that's awesome because we're planning on doing this for a little minute.
Yeah, at least another couple of minutes.
Yeah. Speaking of a couple of minutes, thank you to our patrons.
Yes, massive shout out. Oh,
you
Church
couldn't
had to
hear
do
us.
something. That's all right.
Churchy
fine.
muted us.
We quick go back to start so we can read those. There we go. There's the legends. Thanks, Church. We got like a new studio computer, so we're just teething issues, but we're getting there. Massive shout out to these legends: MJ Moose, Fatboy, Axe Annex, Real One. That's you, Numa. The goats. We have Burnsy, Found Dinosaur, Gridlock, Hockers, Gridlock Journeyman. I said Gridlock 2 times.
We got Black Apollo, Elko, Churchy, Rad, Ollie, Penny, Aggro, Donhua, Dom, Pure Blind, Jackson V, Nathan A, Mini War, Mutt, Oswald Gaming, Analog Line, and Big Roach. And also Pure Blind. Would never forget Pure Blind. I've never forgotten Pure Blind, and I never will forget Pure Blind. So thank you all so much. We'll see you next week where we talk about how to get into wargaming. And then in a couple of weeks, hit all the buttons so you can get part 2 about Skaven.
Yeah. All right, now that everyone's gone, I'm going to get real with you guys for a second, okay?
All right, you're going to get real.
Is this good, Churchy? So we are changing things up when we record.
Yeah, sure.
So we're doing bulk recordings right now.
Yeah.
So we can do more battle reports for you guys.
Oh, who are you talking
I'm
to?
talking to them the whole time, dude.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
I'm talking to everybody. Everyone listening still.
Okay.
So
this is a secret sauce.
if you're watching us right
Bonus
now,
content.
next episode we're going to be wearing the same clothes. We have more clothes.
No, I mean, he has more clothes. I don't have more clothes. This is all I've got. At best, I have a cap that I'll wear backwards just to change up
Done.
things.
It's a whole different character.
Yeah, that's stupid Fox. This is actually reasonable Fox. Yeah, stay tuned next week for Stupid Fox.
Yeah, Stupid Fox is coming next week, but actually in about 5 minutes for us.
Yeah. Time is of a construct, and we have created it, and we bend it to our will.
We're just gods, really.
Yeah, great horned rats.
Yeah. Anyway,
see you next week.
hope you enjoy the new butter reports. See you next week.
Big up to the boys, Fox and Shane. Set your minds free, no locks and chains. Do what you love, roll the dice. 50-50, we cold as ice. One thing cold, but the penny turn red. Can't let deck, right there in my head, war gaming.